Welcome to Teaching Across Screens from UC Berkeley Extension. I'm Stephen Muker, Program Director here. We're so glad that you've taken time during what is most certainly a busy week and a very eventful year to join us for these workshops. Before I introduce Brittany Conrad, I want to just make two short announcements. We have upcoming workshops that you are welcome to join. One will begin its tickets. The tickets will open next week on September 6th, and that's for the challenge of project-based learning in times of social distancing. That will be open for participants. And we just opened up a series of tickets for the session in 2 weeks on Tuesday the 15th, Making Black Lives Matter in and Out of the Classroom. So if you do have questions or an interest in those workshops, you just need to go to the Eventbrite page and find the other workshops that we're offering, and also see what's happening later in the fall. With that, I want to introduce Brittany Conrad, and Brittany is joining us today from Southern California, where she is Ed Tech and Innovation Coach for Corona Norco Unified School District. She has extensive experiences in K-12 education. She's an ed specialist for mild to moderate students, and is going to introduce us to several tools for her work today that come out of her work as a Google for Education certified trainer and a Microsoft innovative educator. And with that, I'm just going to turn it directly over to Brittany, who's going to take us through this workshop for the next hour. Welcome, Brittany.
Thank you so much. I am checking out the chat and seeing all of the amazing educators that are here today, this afternoon, evening, whatever time it is where you are. Again, my name is Brittany. I am a EdTech TSA. I have spent the last 8 years in the classroom and recently just transitioned in October of last year to my position. I saw some notes about teaching students who are legally blind. I had a student on my caseload last year who was legally blind, so I know what that is like. I see lots of Google users, so that's good to know for me when I'm looking at what it is we're going to be wanting to focus on throughout the course of the session. But we are in there we go, we're reaching the special education student remotely tools for teachers session. You will be able to access this session from an email that we'll be sending out, but we'll also be giving you the bit.ly link here. If you want to write that down at any point in time, it's going to allow you to have access to a copy of this presentation after the fact. So it's going to allow you access to everything that I have here. It looks like we are all very seasoned educators. I know I did see some a couple first years. So welcome, Kyra and Matt. You're gonna love it. We've come in at a point in time when things are different than normal, so we're all first year teachers this year, pretty much. So welcome to the club. With that being said, just a couple things, how we're gonna roll through the sessions today. I just want to do a quick group check-in with you all, see where you all are at, how you're feeling, because part of what we do as teachers is we not only educate students in academics, but we want to make sure that we're trying to reach the whole student when we're trying to, Maslow before Bloom, as they say. So one thing that I want to talk about, we'll do a group check-in. We're going to do a little bit of a group discussion via Google Docs. And then I want to get your feedback about what it is that you feel you would like to know more about. I saw some really great platforms listed. And we can definitely, if there are questions that you have about those platforms, I have a couple that I have kind of slated already. But if at any point in time you have any particular question, please go ahead and put it in the chat. I am reading through the chat as we go. So I will definitely do my best to answer those questions that you have, while also kind of talking about the experience that, you know, our district is going through with regard to how we've handled some of these things. Our teachers started back, we have year-round schools in our district, so some of our teachers have started as soon as July 6th. So we've got some backfilling experience happening there as well. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and into the chat, actually into the chat, it says Zoom poll. We're not going to worry about the poll part, but just as a check-in for you, which of these little emojis on screen right now best describes how you feel? Just so I can get a pulse on how we're doing with just, you know, life. One, I love it, Patricia. Kira, nice. Sleepy, yep. It's the end of the day, we're getting there. 4 p.m., it's gonna be dinner time soon, depending on where you are. Abigail, 1-7s, yay! 2 to 3, yep. 2 to 3 can be, that too is sometimes how I feel, especially on Monday of last week when Zoom decided to not work for the whole of the United States. That was wonderful. But we are not, if anything, resilient. So wonderful. Awesome. So thank you for checking in with me on that. It looks like we're all feeling pretty good. What I'm going to do is in the chat, originally we were planning on doing breakouts and I didn't get the chance to set up groups for you. We got to be flexible. If anything in special education, what's the next best thing? So what I have for you, I'm going to put into the chat a Google Doc for you. And should have told you. In the chat, there will be a Google Doc, and you can click on that Google Doc and just kind of choose a group. There are 20 participants, which means there are 17 of us. Go ahead and just choose a group. We'll do groups of 5. And just, if you open the doc, you're going to see that there are 3 questions available there. And I want to gauge exactly where we're at with what our biggest concerns are, what are the hurdles, and what are things you're already doing. So in that doc, I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for myself. There are 3 things that I have asked in that Google Doc. So there are 3 questions, but then once you finish the questions, you'll see down at the bottom that you're going to receive a copy of this presentation. And what I'd like for you to do is to take a look at that and see what you need more information about. And from there, there is a Google form attached, and I'll be able to see those live results to tell me exactly where we want to drive this session today. So where do we need to go and what things do we need to talk more about? Do we need to have more discussion? Do we need to have more time for questions? Is there a platform that you want to use? So what I'm going to do is I am going to just turn on a little tiny bit of music for you and give you about not 10 minutes. Ooh, it's 4:10 right now is what I'm saying. About 3 to 4 minutes to take a look at that form, take a look at the slides, and then complete the Google form. So obviously, maybe more like 5 minutes for those things to happen. But you'll be cued by the music. So when the music stops and I start to see that those Google form responses are there, I'll go ahead and pull you back in. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play here. I'm going to turn just a little bit. So far, we're leaning towards G Suite apps in particular. And delivering accommodations. Some more about that. Awesome. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, this is a good one, but I'm going to go ahead and pause this. All right, so based on feedback from you all, I have 8 people So of the 23, 9 perfect. You're all jumping in. Wonderful. We can go ahead and take a look at, I see most of us are interested in delivering accommodations and how we can deliver those accommodations. And then tool showcases for G Suite apps for education. So luckily, I am a Google certified trainer, so that is something that we can definitely do for you under the context of delivering accommodations. What I did notice, a lot of us are using Google Classroom, and we can talk about how some of that might look within Google Classroom, high school in here, and Google Classroom. So what I want to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and I like to teach live. So you will have access to this slide deck. There's a copy for you. It's going to get mailed to you. So obviously anything that you are interested in looking at after the fact, you'll be able to go in and see all of that information. Just for you, for navigating purposes, just so I can show you. If you want to bump back into the Zoom, welcome back. I just want to show you a couple of things here. So when we're talking about design for students and delivering accommodations, right? Thinking about the types of accommodations we see the most often, I'm going to be pulling from you guys and your experience, things that you have seen come across your desk in IEPs. I know with my experience, accommodations that I see happen or come across even as a case manager, things that I used to offer the most often, there tended to be a pattern. And of course, it's always individualized for students because that's what IEPs are. We all know that being here as a part of this session. But oftentimes, the thing that most often students needed that isn't offered as freely by Google is read aloud. To be 100%, I love Google, I love Microsoft, I love all of them. When I'm thinking about things that are best for students and using for students, I find a lot of those tools available in Microsoft products as opposed to Google products. However, I'm here to show you how to do those things within Microsoft. But I did want to just kind of settle some of your worries with this here. There is no perfect way to present information to all users. It's not possible. David Rose is one of the developers of Universal Design for Learning. So that is the framework under which when I'm building lessons for students, that is how I build. So I try and add in as many layers of components to allow accessibility for most students as I possibly can. And of course, that does not mean that I'll be able to reach all of them. For the teacher who has the blind student, one of the coolest things that I ever got to experience was working with a student on their Braille note. And I used to teach math. And math for Braille is an entirely different set of characters than it is for language arts. So it's an entirely different experience where I could put something on a Google Doc for that student. The Braille note would then read it for the student, but the Braille note couldn't read numbers. So that's when I, as an educator, had to decide, what really is the best for this student. And even in distance learning, sometimes that is, let me get 3 weeks brailled for you ahead of time, and we'll do a pickup. And that is okay. For me as a tech TSA, my teachers look to me for, how do I do this technical But I know some of us are OTs. That fine motor skill and to take away learning how to write your name from a student for the sake of getting them on a keyboard because that's what everyone is doing doesn't always make sense. So you know your students, you know what your students need, and I'm going to show you, of course, ways to help facilitate some of that. So we said G Suite, providing accommodations. In the slide deck, just while we're here, I wanted to show you just some navigation real quick. If you were to click on any of these, so like slide design and styling, if you want to know about that, just click on it, scroll through, hit the home button to go back to that, the box with all of the items on it. So it's going to take you right back to this. So if you want to learn about any of these specific things, you want to see the research, anything like that, just click through. We've got lots of articles for you. I say we, like there's more than one of me. Feels like it sometimes. But there are lots of different strategies here. But what I'm going to show you is what we asked for. So I'm going to jump right into Google. And I'm going to take a look at, and I'm going to start with Google Docs. And we'll talk a little bit about Google Slides as well, considering those are the two platforms that teachers are most often using. And I will also touch on a little bit of Google Classroom to help with the facilitation strategies. Now, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into my drive. So anytime I'm starting with any sort of document, I like to pardon my drive because my drive is a mess. It is full of stuff from training my teachers and my staff with all of their tools that we've been doing when it comes to learning how to translate things or read things aloud, or what extensions can we use for PDFs, things like that. That is all there. So I'm going to head into my Google Drive. And if you are someone who likes to create alongside, you are welcome to do that. You are not required to do that. If you are someone who just needs to sit and watch, that works too. I'm never going to put anybody on the spot for show me your work, let's share screens. I'm oddly not very good at forced interaction. So here we go. So I'm going to head into a Google Doc. And one of the first things that when I'm looking at accessibility features for students in Google Docs, the most apparent is voice dictation, voice to type. Voice to type is available in Google Docs. It is the only platform in which voice to type is available. All right, and to find your voice to type, you're gonna head to Tools, and it will be right there underneath voice typing. So for students who, this is something that we recommend for younger students in our sessions with our teachers, just creating something that is a Google Doc so they're able to use the voice to type feature for their work. And again, that's under Tools. And you just head straight into voice typing and click to speak. It will start listening to you and type down everything you say. It's pretty intuitive and it's pretty accurate. So students who like to do storytelling or may need some help with typing. Another strategy that I've seen this used with is with our SLPs who are having kids retell and they need a transcript. So maybe they weren't able to record the session, but they could just sneak in and grab a little bit of a transcript for the session with the student as well. So that is available. It takes some training. Oh yeah, no problem. I will always model. It takes some training for kind of those little finesse pieces. So like knowing when a period should go somewhere. But on the flip side of that, those students who do need to practice punctuation and things like that, they'll have to go back and free read again. So they'll be able to get some of that typing work in if they have any sort of motor issues or any sort of fine motor or typing skills. Some of those might be lacking, and they can go ahead and use this feature as well. With that being said, there isn't anything currently, well, I shouldn't say that, to have something read back to a student. So in the case of the student, the blind student that I know is here, a teacher is here somewhere who has that student. In that case, specifically with Google Docs, it is going to depend on the device that the student has. Because again, a Braille note, students can, you can actually email the student and they can pick up a Google Doc. If you do have a blind student, just for accessibility purposes overall, especially when we get into slides, I don't recommend slides. If you can put any and everything you can put into a Google Doc for a blind student or a visually impaired student, do that. One cool thing for those of you who do or may have students where we're looking at, okay, I have a bunch of PDFs and Brittany's telling me that this isn't going to work for that student. Do I have to retype everything? One thing that you can do kind of to cut down on your own workload is if you have things that are PDF, PDFs aren't easily readable. I will show you some extensions that will do that. But if in the event you have a visually impaired student, it's very hard for the student to manipulate any of the text to make it bigger or smaller. They can zoom in and out. But if you wanted to pull any of that information off of a PDF, you can also pull it off of an image, which is really cool too. So I'm going to search for a PDF file in my Google Drive. And then what I'll do is, let's see, what do I have here? I have a lot of things in here. Let's see. Digital learning peers for. Okay, I'm just going to pull the text off of this here. And this is something that our district put out when PBS was doing their televised learning. You can open this with a Google Doc. And what that's going to do is it's going to pull all of the info off of a PDF and dump it into a Google Doc. So that then that visually impaired student is able to manipulate that text to be able to type into any of those areas where you might need them to type in. But in addition to that, students will be able to have the text read aloud with an extension called Read and Write. Read and Write is a really great extension that offers a lot of accessibility features for students. So it looks like it's going to take a little while longer just because of the type of information it has to pull off, but it's going to pull all those words that were on that PDF and put them into a Google Doc for us. But let's talk about Read and Write. We got to put the dictation onto the Google Doc. What we want is something that will read it aloud to students. So the Read and Write extension is one that you can get from the Chrome Web Store. And it is linked in the slide deck for you. So read and write. You'll see it has its little puzzle piece, a little purple puzzle piece, and it has a little drop-down menu. And that drop-down menu gives us a bunch of different options for students. So read and write is one that we often recommend for our students because they have access to things like prediction. This picture dictionary is wonderful. So let's see if I highlight a word here. Student, gonna pull up a picture of what a student is, and it is symbol sticks, which is something that any severely handicapped or NSH student is familiar with. So that is available. It can also play
student
the words for the student. If we start at the beginning and highlight the entire thing,
and click the speak, it will start listening to you and type down.
It will start reading the entire thing. So just as an easy way to give students access to something that will read things aloud, read and write is a great option. If you were taking a look in the Google Doc that I used with you all, you will have noticed that one of the comments was actually me reading the instructions aloud to you. So that extension is called Moat. And again, I will make sure that we update based on what you guys asked for. I will make sure I update that slide deck so you have access to everything. That extension is called Moat, M-O-T-E. Oh, I'm running this on my CNUSD account. That's funny. So Moat is an extension that's the extension that allowed me to leave that little voice comment for you. Here it is, voice notes and feedback. And the cool thing about Moat is that Moat can go across Google Docs. It can go across Google Forms, or excuse me, Google Docs, Google Forms, Google Slides, as well as in Google Classroom. Now, and that is a big deal for our teachers who are trying to leave feedback on things in Google Classroom. Moat can be used in Google Classroom as well to add those comments, those voiceover comments. And you would just add the extension. But what I'm going to do, since the accessibility features for docs are pretty limited, to be fair, the options for slides, you can add a video into Google Docs. It is a bit of a workaround if that is something you're needing to do. I always go as multimodal as I possibly can. So again, thinking about design for learning and how do I make sure I get access for all students who need it. Some people need visual, some people need audio, captions, of course, and all of those things. And just trying to be cognizant of that when it comes to what students will need as well. So this will be your process for adding Moat. I had put it onto my personal account and now I'm putting it on my school account, which is fine. And that's going to be how you can record those voice notes for students as well. Okay. All right, so I'm going to head into now Google Slides, because one of the conversations that I often have with teachers is how do I make my slides interactive, but also accessible. And I have a lot of very, very talented colleagues when it comes to slide design and things that they like to create to engage students. Sometimes I have to like rein them back in and say, you know, hey, those aren't necessarily the most accessible things for students. So one example that I would just like to bring up is Bitmoji classrooms. Bitmoji classrooms are a very popular thing with a lot of the elementary school teachers, but they are not the most accessible because of the fact that when you are doing, when we're making little tiny icons, very small, they're a lot harder to click. There's not a lot of room for those students who may have some fine motor issues, or when a screen reader is trying to read that information, unless that image has alternate text, it won't know what to tell the student who is trying to read the slide. So part of the issue comes from things being not so clear. They're very cute. They're adorable, but they aren't always the most accessible for things like screen readers and being able to help students navigate. So something that I like to do in particular when I am creating Google Slides is I like to resize my slide deck to look like a sheet of paper in the event that my students want to print it out. So in the event my students want a hard copy that they can write on, because that is more accessible for them, I like to change the size of my paper to look like, or the size of my slide to look like a piece of paper. So you do that by going into page setup, custom, and you just change it right there to 8.5 by 11. And that's the size of a sheet of paper. So one thing in addition that I try to make sure that I do for my students is I try to make sure that I chunk things. So for those of us using Google Classroom, sometimes it can look like a very long list of assignments, and it's very hard for students to kind of navigate and scroll through. So it makes it very difficult for them to be able to access all of the curriculum that's there. So what I have done in my classrooms is I will use just one sheet to pull in all of the assignments that a student will need to do into one place. And usually what I will do is that will get emailed to the parent, and it will also get placed into the Google Classroom, so that both students and parents are aware of what needs to get done. Now, that communication piece is key when it comes to supporting our students. A majority of the time, when we are trying to ensure the success of our students' IEPs, we work alongside parents. And a lot of what we've noticed, especially with this transition to technology, has been parent training as a way to support our students, especially when we're talking about those kiddos who have low or no fine motor skills. How can we instruct a parent on how to do finger grip? What things can they do at home or have at home to help them build a low-tech solution for those things? So what can we do? So this is one strategy that I use to try and make things a little bit easier for everybody involved. So say, for example, I always use text boxes, because text boxes are able to be read by screen readers. So that ultimately goes back to the idea, some people will pull in images of text. Some people will pull in like just straight images in general. And those things, unfortunately, are not accessible for our students. Some just general tips on things like font choices. Open Sans are the font choices that are the most readable. I know Comic Sans gets a lot of flack for being too playful, but there have been some studies done that show that it helps with students with dyslexia. So there are some things that are beneficial to using that. My go-to just font in general, I like to use Century Gothic because of the spacing, and the letter shape is all very good and helpful for students to be able to read. So for example, let's just go with creating something like a checklist. And that's a great question. Would a text box have different accessibility than just the title and text boxes that show up in the standard layout of a slide? So text boxes, so for example, when we're talking about screen readers in particular, when you're given the option to format the text of a slide, not the text of the slide, what am I thinking? You are given the option, you should be able to choose, if I can find it, I was like, I know where it is on a view the master. It's a subtitle heading. So if you follow the things that are in a regular layout, so this up here is a subtitle heading. It will read it as subtitle heading and then read the heading out loud for that person who is using the screen reader. So that is one way to delineate between something that should be called out as a header versus just text box titles. And which fonts are best and size on PowerPoints. So Open Sans fonts, any of those are good. And I believe I might have put a list on the the slide deck as well. Since you brought up PowerPoint is an amazing tool for this because PowerPoint actually has an accessibility checker built in to it. So if we're talking about, and I hate saying that because we wanted to learn about Google, but PowerPoint actually has an accessibility checker built into it. So it will check that for you automatically. So just know that that exists there as a way for you to check for accessibility. So just some things that you want to be doing when you are designing for students. You want to make sure that when in that slide deck, there are some great tips for just kind of colors to use when designing for users with, and I'll just pull this over and show it to you because it is something that you have. So what I have here, you have access to. And when we're talking about design, just in general, there are some great tips in here. So when designing for students on the spectrum, how to design something, what it should look like, descriptive buttons. A lot of the times we see click here. That doesn't tell a student what's there. So designing for students are used on the spectrum. Here's that screen reader information as well. Don't just show information in an image or a video. However, to be clear, my blind student was someone who would watch YouTube videos in the sense of the word that the student knew how to navigate YouTube, press play, and listen to what was happening in the video. So as much as it says, don't only show information on a video, know that that's also an option that's okay. So if you scroll through, there's dyslexia information, designing for motor and physical disabilities. So this is where that large clickable buttons comes in handy as well. So it has a lot of amazing information, and you have access to this in the slide deck as well. So let me go ahead and switch my share back over here. All right, so what I want to show you, yes, Gabriella, it is amazing. I promise there's so much stuff in that slide deck for you to check out. There are I tried to pull together as much as I possibly could, knowing that you could go back and look at it as opposed to what could I teach you right now, live. So sometimes a lot of that stuff that's in there is easy to read, easy to just kind of look through. Sometimes seeing the skill is a little bit more difficult. So what I might do for a student that I just want to show you, especially since we did mention that there were a couple of teachers who were using Google Classroom before I end up having to say goodbye to you all because whew, that was quick. Work for Monday I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to at least 18, just as something for me. I'm going to turn it into a checklist format also, just to make it easier for my students. So I'm going to choose more bullet points here. And that way, you know, it's something that looks familiar. There is Braille available in Google. However, I will say based on the feedback from my student last year, it's not quite there yet. So just know that that's something that's there. We'll go with a box. All right, a square then, fine. Be picky. There we go. So then it kind of works in the same way that a checklist does. So something that I want to show you that is really a game changer when it comes to organizational things for structures for students is in Google Classroom. There's a couple things that have been updated in the last week or so. The big one being that students can join via invite link. So they don't need to put in a join code anymore, which was something that was kind of a little bit of a hurdle for students as well, with even accessing getting into Google Classroom. So for example here, let's see. For an elementary, I put in when we Zoom in the header here for students so they know what time we do that. But one thing that I would do is, Kelia, we'll get it in for you into the chat in just a minute here. Let me go ahead and actually just assign this, for example, because what I want is the copy link. So if you are not sure, you've not seen this before, every time you assign something in Google Classroom, you will get access to, it has to be assigned, to be clear, you will get access to this copy link. And if a student is in your classroom, you can see down here, it says link copy. If a student is in your classroom, you can just make them a little checklist, work for Monday, language arts, math, science, whatever you need. And you can actually hyperlink directly to the assignments that are posted in Google Classroom. Taking out the need to navigate to anything, taking out the need to scroll looking for information. So when you go in to your Google Classroom and you've assigned something, you'll click the 3 dots, you'll click copy link, and just hyperlink it into your Google slide presentation. And you'll notice if I click this, it's going to jump me right to that assignment for me to do that work. So I've gone and taken out all of the need necessary for the student to go into the classroom, to navigate to the page, to find the assignment, to look for the things that it needs, or that the student needs to do the work for the assignment. You'll notice when you add in Mote, it does offer options for you to be able to speak to your students and give them spoken comments. For you to add audio, you can add audio to your Google Slides as well. And I'm looking at the time and I'm like, man, this session needs to be longer, based on just the fact that we've only talked about 2 things. So you can do voice to type for speaker notes. Thank you, Brenda, for putting that in there. You'll also see some accessibility settings and slides as well for that. But to insert video, you're going to head to insert video. To insert audio, you'll want to record ahead of time. So just some really quick tips about that. Will let me put my, there we go. Actually, I don't need that. So if I insert audio, what happens is it will open up all of the audio files that I have in my Google Drive. And here they are. And what it will do is it's going to create a little icon, create that audio, a little icon right over here, so that if I were to read and explain to the student what it is that they had to do, I can play this one. I'm not sure what it is. So this is a test for audio. Oh, there we go. A test for audio. Good job, Brittany. Nice pick. And they can click on this and listen to, say, maybe you read the instructions aloud. If you need to put this anywhere, this becomes consistent, and this becomes something where students know that when they see that little audio, it's you reading aloud and giving them additional instruction for working through whatever sort of commentary or things that you may need to have them do. Again, so in the slide deck, there are a number of tools to help you out. I tried to make sure that I talked a little bit about student data privacy as well. When we're looking at extensions to help students, there are things that we are responsible for on top of, being responsible for IDA and things like that. So there's a little bit of information in there about that as well. So again, one thing before you go, there is in the slide deck, if you scan this QR code, and I'm going to go ahead and put this into the chat as well, a Wakelet. And if you have not heard of Wakelet, it is a wonderful tool for curation purposes. We didn't even get to scratch the surface of Immersive Reader, but that's because we went the Google route, which is fine. Nothing wrong with Google. So in that Wakelet, I have curated some resources for you all to kind of see how you could do some remote learning. A lot of it is content that either myself, well, I shouldn't say that. There is content there that is curated by myself. Some of it is from my colleagues. There's information about how to make Flipgrid accessible. I recommend Flipgrid 100% especially for accessibility. And if you are an SLP, Flipgrid for articulation is an awesome tool because you can see the students making the shapes of their mouth. Plus, you can do some attachments. Students can get transcripts from Flipgrid. Anything that you would want a student to record. I saw some OT. Perhaps maybe we get parents involved and we film them doing any of their therapies. That's a way to kind of get involved with students at home. So if you have the chance to check out Flipgrid, I highly recommend it. And it has Immersive Reader in it. If me saying Immersive Reader right now is the first time you've ever heard of Immersive Reader, it's an amazing tool. It lives in a number of platforms. And if you ever have questions about it, I am happy to answer those. This has really been an awesome time for me. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you all. And, right now, a lot of the work that we are doing is hard work. We are doing hard work. So please know that you deserve grace and you deserve patience. I know it's hard when parents don't feel that way sometimes, because that kind of is the case from time to time. So thank you so much, Kayla. I hope I'm saying your name right. That's when I would use Flipgrid and I would make you pronounce it for me so I could say it correctly. So again, I just want to say thank you so much. And I know that we are, as special educators, education specialists, whatever you want to call us, we always keep our students in the forefront of our minds with whatever we do. But also in this time, just take some time for yourself and let yourself be first. Just because, you know, it is, it's hard right now. So know that I'm available for you. If you ever have questions, you can email me. I am on Twitter. That's usually where you will find me under the Miss Conrad EDU. And if you want any sort of information about anything, my job is to know everything about everything. My district tends to make fun of me because they always want to know how I got to know so much stuff, and it's my job. So you are so welcome, and I'm not going to keep you for forever. I could do, somebody said they could listen to me talk all for hours. I could probably do that. I will go ahead, and if you need to leave, you can leave. There's a little leave in the bottom right-hand corner. It's the little red leave button. You know, all good things must come to an end. And love it. And so, Satinder, I hope I'm saying that right. If you want any information, district history teacher is one of my very near and dear friends, does some amazing work for history. So if you want to email me, I can get you some really good stuff for history in particular. And then you all are so kind. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you found this helpful. I know it's one of those things where you never know what you're going to get until you get in there and find out what people need. So again, thank you so much for all the work that you do for students. And you are so welcome. I am going to hang out maybe for a minute here. And then we'll go ahead and end the meeting for everybody.
So Brittany, I'll just add, sorry. So it's beautiful to read the chat. The responses show just a real generosity and so much need this during this really challenging time, and to find people meeting across districts and places in California and elsewhere is just really beautiful. So thank you, Brittany, for that. And I want to mention that we do send out a survey. It will go out tonight, and it's a chance for you to offer additional feedback, and we really appreciate that feedback. And we really appreciate having Brittany here. And I suppose, I guess we could, if you want to put on your microphone, we'll end the session now and you can leave, but if you had some specific comments you want to, there's the moment when, if this was a physical workshop, it'd be the people that walk up and talk to her at the end of the meeting, and we can't really do that. So let's leave Zoom on for 10 more minutes. The session's over. We thank you for attending Teaching Across Screens, and please join us again. I guess the difference with that analogy is then everyone's standing around listening, and so maybe people don't want to.
I know. Yeah, Gabriella.
Good evening. First of all, thank you so much for this. It's so overwhelming trying to figure all of this out yourself, so thank you. You mentioned breakout sessions. Is that something that is too detailed to go over now, or can you direct me as to where I can go to learn how to do them?
So breakout sessions in Zoom, I just would like to caution you with breakout sessions in Zoom. If you are planning on doing breakout sessions in Zoom, you can assign numbers of students to a breakout session when you're the host in Zoom. Are you using Zoom or Google Meet?
Google Meet.
Okay, so in Google Meets, the best way to go about doing something like that is to open multiple meetings. Now, something that I would caution you with is being able to moderate the number of meetings because with Zoom, students can share their screen at any time in a meet. The same goes for, or anytime during a meeting. they're in a breakout room. The same goes for Google Meets. So if your students are needing to screen share, that's great. It depends on the age of your students. We often try to caution teachers with the whole situation of screen sharing and things like that. You don't have those features available yet in Google Meets. They are coming. However, Google hasn't given a specific time frame for when being able to when it's just teacher enabled. So right now, students can share screens. They can unmute each other. What you would need to do would be something similar to what we did with the Google Doc, where you would put in student names, and then you would just assign them a meeting link, and they could click that meeting link and then jump into that meeting where you would already be running. So Gabriella, I would be happy to, if you wanted to email me, I'd be happy to send you kind of like a video for how to set that up if you needed that. Or I'm trying to think of where I've seen it done on Twitter. Twitter PLN, it's actually pretty good. But if that's not your thing, then you just let me know, and I'll try and get access to some things for you. I'm looking for video right now for Meet, because it's not as clean cut as when you try it with Zoom.
Okay.
And again, Google Meet doesn't have as many have as many security features as Zoom might. So there is an extension for Google Meet breakout rooms.
Okay.
That I can and it's literally called that, Google Meet breakout rooms. And I'll just copy and paste it right into the chat there. So you can check that out. That's where the breakout rooms are.
Thank you.
Well, of course. So I'll go ahead and copy and paste that one too. Here's another one for you. Because that one will track attendees as well. So
Okay.
the second one that's there. But that is something that's coming in an update. But we just don't know when, which isn't helpful. I wish they would give us some more info on that, but.
Sorry, I don't mean to monopolize.
No, you're good. No problem.
We just had a PD on Peer Deck.
Oh yeah,
it looks very good, but I'm still very lost.
Okay.
The accessibility things that we spoke about this evening, are those things that can be used in Peer Deck?
So with Peer Deck in particular, one thing that I'm going to go ahead and screen share for, so that you can see, you're going to have to turn that on. Has your district given you premium subscription for Peer Deck?
Yes, they have.
Wonderful. Okay, so for you, the easiest way to make Peer Deck work for you is going to be to actually set up 2 windows. You don't need 2 screens, but you'll want 2 windows. I'm trying to think if I'm doing any Peer Deck sessions coming. I just did some Peer Deck sessions last week. I was like, Gabrielle, you can come to mine in my district. It's fine. We'll go over it again. Go to sessions. Or actually, you can just scroll down to settings. And one of the things that I mentioned today was this immersive reader.
Mm-hmm.
You'll want to turn immersive reader on. And with Peer Deck in particular, it becomes important for how you design the slides. So Peer Deck is something you can do as like an overlay on top of slides, right? Because you can add the little answer choices and things like that.
Yes.
But whatever you put on the slide is really what is the stimulus for students. So just make sure that your slide design is something that's easily readable, that we don't have images on there, because with Immersive Reader, it's not going to be able to read, well, when I say images, like text images, it's not going to be able to read those things.
Okay.
But as long as you have it in the text box, Immersive Reader is going to be able to read it to the student, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Of course. All righty.
Brittany, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Thank you for the good question, Gabriella, and
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah,
You're
good to see
welcome.
everybody.
Yeah.
All right, till next time.
Yeah, absolutely.